got my pistol out of my car and just started wildly shooting it into the air and put a couple rounds into traffic, hit 2 vehicles passing by. Fortunately, no one was injured. We just found this new study from the FDA that you should not be on this for over 12 weeks at a time. I was on it for 4.5 years.
Oh,
and,
wow.
The longest known study only lasted 2 years, and they ended it because everyone started getting psychosis and hallucinations.
Wow.
And it's a known side effect of this drug, but I was never informed of these things,
Did it do what it was supposed to do work-wise?
It did. It's considered a stimulant. So the idea is you take it in the morning, it regulates your ups so that your body's like on point when you need to be. And then it kind of tailors off and your body's natural circadian rhythm takes over and you go to sleep. And it worked. It was working for me. I was able to function at work again. I went forward on that deployment and absolutely crushed it. It's kind of, I think the movie Limitless is based on this drug.
Oh, okay.
So that gives you an idea of like the power of it.
Did they entertain, trying to think of the, like Adderall or Vyvanse or any of that kind of stuff instead, or?
It just, I don't know. It didn't come up. Because I had
that stuff is probably any better, I think, for that amount of time. I don't know. I know a lot of people are on that shit, but.
Right. And for the most part, I thought I was being responsible with it. Even with the length of time I was taking it, I was only taking it when I was working.
Yeah.
So like I had periods of time where I just didn't take it at all. Multiple days in a row, weeks at a time.
Was it hard on you to go on and off it? Like, does your body get used to it? It doesn't have withdrawals or anything?
Yeah, no withdrawals. So in my mind, I was being responsible, doing the right thing. I'd gone through all the procedures to be on this, and it was helping. It was addressing some of the problems. Now, when I get to the actual misprescription of it, there's some nuance because when I got out in 2014 and went to the VA for my disability and compensation claims, as I was instructed to do when I got out, they rated me ultimately at 90% disability, and I had like 70% for PTSD. And at the time, I found this out later doing some research. The VA had this huge scandal where docs were misdiagnosing TBI as PTSD on purpose because their justification was that PTSD goes away and we can bring these ratings down and not have to pay out veterans, for the disability claims. And so despite having multiple documented TBIs in my medical records and that I claimed it, they gave me 0% on that. And so when my primary care doctor went to go prescribe that, I had 0% for TBI. So there's no contraindication, where this is not an ideal drug for someone with traumatic brain injury.
I gotcha.
And so, this all comes out after the fact because of this incident that occurred. So leading up to that incident, it happened February 15th, 2022. And, I started my company in March of 2021. So I had that 1 year runway, right? And we're coming up on February. It's like towards the tail end of January. And I know that, we only got about a month and a half left. I've got employees that are on overhead with me, helping to try to build the business. But we just don't have the revenue, the cash flow to be able to support them without that investment funding, right? So like the contracts that we have only are going to cover so much overhead.
Yeah.
And so I know that, shit's about to go down and I'm going to have to make some really hard decisions. So, I just did what I do best and like went to work and, and that's that whole path, right? Like adversity and overcome it or become a victim and succumb to it. Right. Like, so, and I chose that other path. I'm going to find a way out, and so all I could do is just work harder. And the thing that I sacrificed was my sleep. I just went back to what I knew. And, I was working crazy hours and we're starting to see some success. I locked in a couple of contracts. We're licensed for private investigative services. So I was, doing this private investigative work for a couple of commercial companies. And, it was intensive, right? Like the amount of work that I had to put into that was crazy. And so I'm sleeping like 2 or 3 hours a night, just doing everything I can to just find new opportunities. And so we found an opportunity with MARSOC where ultimately this software tool that I've developed now at the time was under early development, and this contract vehicle that we found with another prime that I'd originally worked for, so I had a good relationship with them. I leveraged that. They had an R&D contract, which they were the sole source award to, and research and development for cyber. And so basically we would be able to leverage that vehicle to bring MARSOC in as the customer and develop this tool in tandem with their requirements, right? And so in real time, we're developing it and getting feedback, user feedback for what they need on the back end. And so the 2 weeks leading up to this event, I'm just like crushing it, going to all these different meetings, pulling other entities into the fold on this, because you can't do anything alone. You got to find the experts that are really good at their aspect of it and bring them into it, right, as a team. And so I'm building the team, getting everything ready, and I secure this meeting with MARSOC to go pitch them and get their final buy-in so that we can get this contract off the ground and running. And this is going to fix everything, So the meeting's for February 15th at 10:30 in the morning. Obviously, I've been working my ass off, so my family's suffering from this. I'm not spending any time with them. So the day before is Valentine's Day, and I took the whole day off. I wanted to be with my wife, instead of like going down the night before and being there. So I spend the day with her, and because I took that day off, I fell behind on something. I had to get that PI work completed, the report collated and finalized to get out the door the next morning. It was due the 15th. And so I stayed up till about midnight working on that, and just finally had to crash. I went to sleep for about an hour, and I woke up, finished the report, and then got on the road. And, I was under extreme stress, a lack of sleep, and then this drug, and high amounts of caffeine just to stay alive and make the drive down there.
So you were still on the Nuvigil at this point?
Yes. And something happened along the way down there. It just the medication took over, and all the psychosis and the hallucinations happened. I completely blacked out. I don't even remember getting to my friend's house, which the kind of goal was to get to a friend's house, drop my vehicle off right on base with him because I didn't have access to get on the compound anymore. And at some point driving into that area, something about just being back in that, my old stomping grounds, which I hadn't been down there.
Fayetteville or what?
No, Jacksonville.
Jacksonville.
Yep. So I'm driving over to Stone Bay where MARSOC has its headquarters. I hadn't been down there in years, so perhaps something of that nature brought the flashbacks or something. I don't know. But I just completely blacked out. And I get to his house, and, this is all based on their testimony, some footage from his Ring camera, phone calls, text messages, and some CCTV footage. But ultimately, we were able to kind of piece things together. And, he knew something was wrong right away because I wasn't acting normal. And he called another friend of mine who came off base, and they had me both at the house, and were just trying to get me to stay there. They told me that, we can't take you on base like this. There's something going on. And, they were just trying to keep me contained. And at some point I decided to leave, got in my vehicle and started driving home. must have known something wasn't right. And, you go into fight or flight, right? So, at some point I pull over at a location along the route home, right outside of Jacksonville. And, got out of my car. Was pretty angry, like slammed my phone on the ground and was smashing it. Apparently I'd been talking to my wife and thought she was the devil and I was here to purge evil from the world. And I got my pistol out of my car and just started wildly shooting it into the air and put a couple rounds into traffic. Hit 2 vehicles passing by. Fortunately, no one was injured. Just kind of hit the exterior of the vehicles. 2 rounds did. And I shot up my own car. Ended up putting a round right through the center console and hit we know all this from after the fact. The vehicle got totaled, but at the time it was still running, and I got back in it and drove further until it just kind of rolled to a dead stop somewhere outside of town. Eventually my buddies got me on the phone and got me to share my GPS location, and they came and picked me up, brought me back to that house. But when they got to that site, and these raiders, right? So like they know their stuff, they know what to look for and everything. It was a pretty obvious site. The vehicle had been destroyed. There's smoke all over the inside of it. The heater core had exploded and thrown antifreeze or whatever the heater fluid is everywhere and melted down the computer essentially. But so they knew something had happened. My pistol was slide locked to the rear. So my buddy knew something was wrong. But they saw that as the crime scene. It wasn't necessarily a crime in their minds because I'd shot my own vehicle. No one was injured. There were no police there. So, their thoughts were like, all right, we got to get you to safety, get you to a mental health hospital. By that point, my wife was already coming down from Virginia. And we know, like, through discovery where the detectives had released all this information, text messages and everything, she already knew right then there was a medical or it was a reaction from the medication. And, and that's in text messages, right? Like we have that as evidence. The state has that as evidence. The testimonies from these raiders, like it's all there. You just got to put all those pieces together and look at it as what happened is the medication caused this incident. It was not a criminal action. I didn't intend to do that. I was not physically or consciously aware of what was going on. But ultimately, we started to drive back up to Virginia, left the vehicle at a shop there, got it towed and whatnot. And I'm still not like there. At some point along the way back up to Virginia, Onslow County Sheriff, which is the county where this happened, detective calls and starts asking questions, and I'm talking to him. And I really don't remember much of this conversation. I know that I was speaking to law enforcement, but I don't remember the conversation. I only have the transcripts. Ultimately, he basically said, like, hey, we need to talk to you. And I was like, all right, well, you're talking to me. What can I help you with? And they're like, well, we have some video footage. You look pretty angry, and we just need to make sure you're okay. And I told them that I was okay. I'm with my wife in Virginia and, headed home. They said, well, we need to see you. And I said, well, I can FaceTime you, whatever you need, I'm here, but I'm in Virginia now. They said, well, no, we need to see you in person. We need to be able to close our case out. And I said, okay, do I need a lawyer? Is there something wrong? And they said, well, as a U.S. citizen, anytime you're dealing with law enforcement, you're entitled to a lawyer. But there's no charges. You have nothing to worry about. We just need to see you in person and verify that this is you and be able to close our case out. And I said, okay, well, if that's the case, can I come back down there, on Monday? And they said, yeah, that'd be fine. And so I have all these transcripts, and that was not the case. As soon as we got off the call, that detective filed a warrant for my arrest in Virginia as a felon fugitive from justice. And, so I get back to Virginia, and by this point, it's like the day after, and it's evening, and I'm starting to kind of like be myself again.
Had you stopped taking the medication?
Oh yeah.
Do you normally take it once a day?
Once a day in the mornings.
A couple questions before we get further into the story. What was the last point that you remember driving down there?
Driving into Jacksonville.
And then it's black, and then there wasn't like and then I remember from here on it was more of a gradual.
It was gradual, like just feeling like, have you ever fainted?
I haven't.
Okay. Like when you come back from that, it's like almost, have you ever been like frag or like a concussion grenade?
Yeah, I've been knocked out.
Yeah. So it's like that. When you come back to, you're like trying to figure out what's going on and get your bearings.
Yeah.
It was a lot of that, but in and out.
Is there a moment that's legit the first moment that you can for sure remember?
Yes.
Which was what?
Getting arrested.
Oh, no shit.
Yeah.
Okay. So even when you're talking to him, you're going back, it's still foggy and you don't really remember much of it?
No.
So at what point were you arrested?
So that night,
Okay.
It was dark. So, this was February. So it had to have been at least after 6 p.m.